Here I discuss the nature of the globalist parasites in order to get a fix on who they are, what they are, and how they operate amongst us. The parasites of any nation are outside of the body of the nation and have separate and different interests from the nation, just as in nature the interest of the parasite is not that of the host. Parasites are always, but always, detrimental to their host. Human parasites naturally become part of the globalist world as they displace themselves from their nation. The parasitic class make up the globalist class. The parasitic class make up the globalist class. Here I am not defining parasites, that I deal with separately, but the definition is of paramount importance, for they are defined by the way they accumulate wealth, and for that, parasites in society, as in nature, have very special modes of operation. Parasites is not a term I want to throw around casually, as that would lead us away from the real evil they represent. For instance, sometimes the word rentier is used to mean parasites. People who rent properties or receive interest on investments are not parasites, but simply indulging in a legitimate and in general beneficial economic activity. I, like many, have done both in my time, albeit on a small scale. The derogatory use of the word rentier comes from Adam Smith economics, which seeks to denigrate those who invest in land and industry domestically. It carries with it a political agenda we should resist. Those who become absurdly rich as multi-billionaires simply have to be parasites or plain thieves. You cannot make such vast fortunes by legitimate means. By legal means, yes, but not by ethically legitimate means. Their methods should be made illegal, as they will be under our radical new constitution. Before we turn now to the nature of the parasitic globalists, let me state one other proviso. This concerns the UK domestic parasitic network. In another presentation, I will deal fully with the globalist network, which is extensive and requires separate treatment. The domestic networking seamlessly integrates with the international one. The power elite, the parasitic elite, whether national or global, is not defined by any organisation. There are plenty of candidate organisations to put forward for this role. Indeed, many of them have been. For example, on a more mundane side, there is attendance at the yearly conference at Davos. On the more sinister side, there are secretive assemblies like the Bilderberg Group. Gatherings such as these are important to the elite, but they do not define it. The power elite, as we refer to it here, are set apart from others by money. You do not enter the magic circle unless you are very seriously rich, and that means billionaires at least. David Rothkopf, in his book Superclass, discusses those who have global power. This includes central bankers, presidents, and hangers-on, like rock star Bono. But we must not conflate political power or any other type of power, such as cultural, institutional, and media power, with financial power. There are myriad captured helpers of the elite at different levels of influence to control, to deal with these secondary types of power. Financial power enables you to purchase political and other types of power, and so financial power is primary, especially in a world where it can act and move unchecked, which is the world of today. The parasitic elite are those who have gained their wealth through parasitic activity and use the power that their wealth gives them to preserve and develop such activity. You simply cannot become a multi-billionaire by playing fair. You only achieve such obscene wealth through parasitism. Your activities may be legal, and that is a big part of the problem that the new constitution will correct. But no definition of parasitic activity corresponds to any organisation that the parasites belong to. That is because there is none. However, they do have a network. This is not one continuous all-embracing network, but a number of organisations, formal and informal, national and international, through which they maintain contact with each other. They do not need to assemble together to vote on policy, because they all know what the policy is, to increase and protect their wealth extraction activities. That is a given. In the historical past, meaning roughly from the middle of the 18th century to the middle of the 20th century, wealth extraction from the nation of Britain and the UK occurred by exporting it where it would benefit the owner but not the country of origin that enabled that wealth to be created in the first place. This was closely related to imperialism. Thus, the wealth extraction from the economy occurred by exporting the capital. This still occurs in full, and it must cease. The rich can keep their honestly acquired wealth, but they must keep it in this country. In our times, the primal parasitic activities revolve mostly around the new instruments of financial capitalism, inflation of asset prices, tax evasion, financialization, quantitative easing, shell company holdings, stripping of state assets, privatization, asset stripping of private companies by private equity, high-speed trading, multinational companies, austerity, public debt, private debt, student debt, and tradable derivatives of all kinds. The parasitic nature of these activities is never remarked upon in the mainstream media. They are treated as respectable businesses that somehow benefit the economy. But they are detrimental to the economy, as they do nothing but to enable wealth extraction. That was a list of some of their legal activities. Their illegal activities would produce a similarly long list, if not an even longer one. With parasitic wealth extraction activities banned, that means their private wealth will find its way into investments in Britain, and that any profits they make will be taxed by the British Exchequer. Thus, there is a feedback loop whereby profits made are fed back into the economy and society that made those profits possible. You can find this principle described in some orthodox economic theory, but they imagine that it can work globally. This is, of course, absurd, both theoretically and empirically. Here we come to an essential aspect of the nature of the globalist parasitic elite. They are bonded together by one thing: loyalty. In this, they resemble criminal gangs like the mafia, for whom loyalty is primary. Being outside the law, mafias cannot resort to contracts and courts for those who break trust. But unlike those of the mafia, parasitic activities in the main are not, as it stands, illegal. Loyalty within the parasitic elite does not need an organization. If it did, it would be a very fragile kind of loyalty that maintained it. But what it does need is personal contact. The elite are naturally few in number because of the stiff financial entry qualifications, but they need to be small in number anyway for personal loyalty to work. As a member, you may not know every other member or even know them by name, but someone you know personally will know them. For a true bond of loyalty to function, 2 degrees of separation are the maximum. Having loyalty as the bond means that any organizational connection can be informal. Davos is a conspicuous example. Attendees from outside the inner circle of the elite remark on just how informal and seemingly open it is. Although Davos as we know it is probably a thing of the past, for the globalist elite to all gather together in one place would be far too dangerous now that they have made their conspicuous grab for world control. The behind closed doors proceedings, such as those of the Bilderberg Group, may be formal, but attendance is not. People come and go as circumstances change, but all will understand the fundamental importance of loyalty to the group. Loyalty also extends to the elite's captured helpers, but here it means something different. Not being members of the elite themselves, they may think to portray it, and this is a constant concern of the parasites. They control this situation by rewarding loyal helpers very well, Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair being prime examples, and by making sure that those who betray them suffer accordingly. This will mean at least closure of job opportunities and being ostracized from society. The line between the national parasitic elite and the international one is effectively non-existent. This is particularly the case with the British parasitic elite, which enjoys unrivaled internationally extended power through two main factors. These are, firstly, its history of creating the globalist New World Order with the secretive Round Table established around 1900 by the House of Rothschild, Cecil Rhodes' mining fortune, King Edward VII, Alfred Milner, and others, and secondly, its role as base for the City of London with its archipelago of tax havens, all British-owned and governed by the House of Windsor. Only the American deep state and Wall Street can realistically challenge this supremacy. So when we talk about the British power elite, we should understand the importance of its international dimension. Indeed, it is its international dimension that gives it such power over our national parasites. In order to fulfill their aims, could not operate on their own as an isolated group. Rarely do the elite do their own dirty work directly. They have to be integrated in society at all levels, and for these they employ their captured helpers. These are people who are captured by the elite by some trick or manipulation and thereby become their instruments. The different ways in which these captured helpers work explains how the elite insinuate their power into every nook and cranny of our society. The evil elite have 4 grades of captured helpers to effect their absolute control of society and the economy. Each is rewarded differently according to their status and their value. These are 1. Prime assets, 2. Controlled puppets, 3. Worker ants, 4. Comfort zoners. 1. Prime assets. Prime assets like Thatcher or Blair will achieve great wealth and, if possible, politically canonized. The latter did not happen with Blair, and the elite have done their best but have been unable to fix things for him, and he remains a pariah. 2. Controlled puppets. Controlled puppets are the run-of-the-mill politicians and power brokers who sell out to the elite. Very few that reach high office can resist the elite's overtures and make a pact with them. Afterwards, breaking that pact is not an option. Disloyalty carries a heavy price. 3. Worker ants. The worker ants are the millions who have swallowed the globalist stories and the ideology of liberalism and have turned on their nation. They are, unlike prime assets and controlled puppets, unaware of the existence of the evil elite. They move in a mindset wholly congenial to the elite without realizing it. This goes for lefties, like Labour Party supporters, and Greens, and of course Lib Dems. In Europe, they are the centrists, Christian Democrats, etc. Marx said the enemies were the capitalists, but capitalists are not parasites. The shadow of Marx that hovers over leftist thinking functions perfectly for the elite who are not capitalists. They are apart from society, being parasites. Conservatives and nationalists make the elite uncomfortable, for they challenge the liberal ideology and cannot be considered worker ants in the main because of this. All are liberals, although they think they are against each other. In general, the elite does not reward them, at least not directly. They may benefit from the inequality that liberalism creates if they position themselves accordingly. 4. Comfort zoners. Comfort zoners are those who reject seeking the truth in order to not disturb their comfort zone. This means, in practice, accepting the official misinformation without question. They receive no reward except the privilege of being exploited. They are passive helpers only, but being very numerous, they are very important. We are fundamentally a Christian nation by history and by general prevailing identity. Having said that, there are equally also within the nation Jewish believers, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindi, and members of other true world religions. All these world religions share a similar morality and reverence for others. Those who call themselves atheists are generally imbued no less than others with a similar morality. But those who belong to the parasitic elite cannot hold similar views, for their position of being sustained purely by parasitic activity on the rest of society is incompatible with the world religion morality. So they adopt a different position. This is Luciferianism, which is an inversion of world religion morality. Not just an alternative to put alongside them, but the total opposite. This arises inevitably from the position of the parasites in relation to the rest of us. By developing and raising up counter-human, counter-rationality, counter-morality Luciferian ideologies and making them dominate society and culture. Rejection of morality in favour of power. Intrinsic to parasites is that any methods they use must be evil in respect of the society whose blood they suck. They cannot do good without undermining their parasitic activity. This is why we call them the evil elite. When we say we must eradicate the evil elite completely, we mean we must eradicate the evil, not the people who make up the elite. The evil elite will not exist, as the Constitution will prevent the evil they do being possible. This derives directly from their nature as parasites. Luciferianism advocates world government, the New World Order, which will be controlled by elevated human beings who will remain hidden. The present situation with the secret elite is very similar. The plan is being realized. All religions will be unified into one according to theosophist principles. All religions have some sort of recognizable organization that advertises their existence. Even atheism has humanist groups and organizes itself and has leading spokesperson. Secular humanism is built into most modern nation states. But does Luciferianism have a similar organization or organizations? We do not have to look very far. Which organization in our midst proclaims itself as comprising an elite group who put each other before the rest of us? Which organization, while conducting many rites within itself, does not see itself as Christian? Which organization within our midst is constructed as a mystery religion, whereby there is a gradual process of initiation to attain the truth, of which it is the guardian? Is there such an organization with international reach? Is there such an organization of which membership is a singular qualification in the higher reaches of power, and that many, if not most of the people with power in our society hold? Is there such a society that shrouds itself in secrecy and does not publish lists of its members? Yes, Freemasonry. Now let us ask the big important question in our discussion of the parasitic elite and its Luciferian ideology. Is the god of Freemasonry Lucifer? Many have asked this question. Many Masons would not be able to answer this question and probably would not be very interested. They know that there is a lot of mumbo-jumbo associated with their attendance and initiations into Masonry. Although full participation in the often degrading rituals is obligatory, many will pay scant regard to this aspect as they are in the group for other reasons. probably mostly to do with their business or profession. It is only when you get to the very highest degrees of Freemasonry, the 31st, the 32nd, and the 33rd, that this central question of what Freemasonry is about is important. This is the typical structure of a mystery religion as they have existed since ancient times. They are not like open religions like Christianity, for instance, where you can become a Christian in a moment and all the texts of the religion are open to anyone regardless of whether they are members of the religion or not. It cannot be like that in a religion or cult that worships Lucifer, or Satan as Christians would call him. The nature of Lucifer and Luciferianism is too shocking to be released just like that. And more fundamentally, it is directly in opposition to Lucifer's creed that everybody should be included. By its nature, the principles and wisdom must belong to a tiny elite with a great mass of unenlightened hangers-on, the Freemasonry membership, and beyond that the rest of humanity, who in any case are of much lesser account. A political party website is not the place to pursue this in detail, and there is a mass of information out there which reveals the truth about Masonry, all of it, of course, from non-Masonic sources. What we are directly concerned with is the political and economic operation of the parasitic elite, and it is this that the new constitution will combat directly. However, the sheer evil that the parasitic elite is capable of demands an explanation. How is it that a seemingly urbane and cheerful person like David Cameron can commit mass murder and the destruction of a country like Libya, which, if not perfect, delivered a good quality of life for most of its citizens? How could he be capable of such a diabolical act? Having done that once, how could he, without remorse and without drawing breath, wish to repeat the same exercise on Syria, but was famously prevented from doing so by Parliament to his chagrin? There are many examples known to us today of similar people carrying out similar heinous acts with honour and respect from their peers, and the rewards. The answer can only be that he is subject to a group psychology which takes him outside of his own humanity. And further, this group psychology has to be driven by some fundamental powerful principle that transcends human nature. Lucifer is the god of Freemasonry, and so his tentacles are interwoven into our society through the earthly offices of that cult. Even those few members of the elite who are not Freemasons, for example, the Masons will not accept convicted criminals, and there is no shortage of those in the elite, will imbibe the Luciferian creed. And remember, the motto of Freemasonry, order out of chaos. This plan is being enacted now with endless wars. Luciferians like hell, and war is the way they create hell on earth. This is how they could create World War I and 9/11 and the wars that followed these events. Christianity and the world religions favour the spiritual life as a goal. Hell can only exist in the material world, whereas the spiritual life is beyond materiality.